Forum's private prosecution unit is to prosecute Duduzane Zuma for an accident in February 2014. It caused the death of a taxi passenger, Phumzile Dube. President Jacob Zuma's son will be the test case for the civil rights organization's first prosecution. AfriForum's head of prosecutions, Advocate Gerrie Nel, joins us in studio to discuss this. Welcome into studio, Advocate. Good to have you with us. Please just take us back to the circumstances of this accident very briefly, please.
Jan, it was an accident in February 2014. It was a rainy night. There was an accident between Mr. Zuma and a taxi, and unfortunately Phumzile Dube died instantly in the taxi. And then the National Prosecuting Authority decided not to prosecute, and they referred the matter to the Randburg Court for a formal inquest. That formal inquest gave a judgment to the court in December of 2014, and the magistrate said that Mr. Zuma failed to conduct himself in a reasonable manner under the circumstances and under the adverse weather conditions, and she rejected his defense of aquaplaning. And that matter was then referred back to the NPA, who in August of 2015 decided not to prosecute.
Now that's an interesting thing. On what grounds did the NPA decide it was not going to prosecute?
Well, they indicated in a letter that there was no reasonable prospect of success on a prosecution.
What's your opinion on that?
We think there is. We think that there should be a prosecution, and therefore we assisted the Dube family to apply for a nolle prosecutor certificate. And it's now over to the NPA to decide if they would issue such a certificate and when. And they also have the option to reconsider their decision and prosecute themselves.
So this is essentially a certificate that says they're not interested in doing this, and therefore anyone else, like your group, for example, AfriForum, is at liberty to do so.
Yeah, I think one should be more specific, Joanne, and that the family will get the certificate, and the family can then get somebody to prosecute on their behalf. Because to get a certificate, you have to show a peculiar interest in a matter, but the family will have that, will qualify, in my view, and therefore they'll get the certificate, and they will then request us to prosecute on their behalf.
Do you feel there's enough evidence here for a winnable case?
Yeah, I do, and that's why we've done this. That's why we applied for a certificate. I wouldn't want to really deal with this, with the facts of the matter or the prosecution strategy. That's something that will follow much later. My opportunity just now is to talk about the process of a private prosecution, and it's a really exciting prospect and an exciting development.
So take us through what that process is.
The process is really, you can only get involved as a private prosecutor once the NPA decided not to prosecute. Then you approach them for a nolle prosecutor certificate, and you say that I believe there's merit in the matter and we want to prosecute. Once they issue a certificate, you as a private prosecutor will have 90 days to institute prosecution. If you're in court, it's business as usual. The normal rules of evidence, normal rules of procedure, normal sentences. So once you get into court, it's a normal prosecution.
Let me just ask you, I mean, many people are wondering why this case is the first you decided to take on. AfriForum is stereotyped as an organization that really only has Afrikaner minority rights at heart, right? But interestingly here, you are trying to support a black family that wants answers on this issue, but you're also going after the president's son, which I think would satisfy quite a few AfriForum supporters.
You see, when we launched this unit in February, we said it's a principal issue. It's to ensure the equality before the law and to address even a perception that there's selective prosecution. Now, this particular matter falls squarely within what we set out to do, and it's a matter that's ready. There's been a formal inquest. There's been 2 bites at the cherry for the NPA. They decided not to. So that's why this particular matter is really ready to be prosecuted.
But it's an interesting thing because a lot of people are trying to get at Duduzane Zuma for many reasons, alleged corruption being one of them. You're a smart man. I mean, are you taking the easiest route into prosecuting a man who seems untouchable in many other ways?
No, I would rather say that it's a matter that fits into what we try and achieve, and that is equality before the law. It's not about the person, it's not about the case, it's really about the principle. Equality before the law. That's why we created this office, to ensure that there's no selective prosecution and equality before the law. So I would rather say it's about a principle and not so much about the person.
And thank you so much for coming in to
Thank you, Gerrie.
this afternoon. AfriForum's Head of Prosecutions, Advocate Gerrie Nel.